Winning is easy. Just buy a Rock Boom or La Vita and check under the cap. What you see is what you win. Enjoy as you win in the Twegateko promotion today. Call toll-free number 0800 299 008.
Today we are going to look at the traffic lights on our roads. The traffic lights are placed at segments where roads meet to enable people know what they are supposed to do and what they are not supposed to do. When it comes to the traffic lights, we have the signals. Those signals light in red, green, and amber. When the lights light red, it means you should stop, you should not go. When the light lights green, it means you should go. When the light lights amber, that's the yellow color, it means you should slow down, you're going to stop, you should not move ahead. In any case you move ahead, you cause an accident. Still we have the pedestrian signal lights. Those ones are always in two colors. We have the green color and we have the red color. When you see the green color of a picture of a human being in that light, it shows that you should cross the road. When that green color starts blinking, if you've not started to move, you should not move to cross the road. If it brings the red color, it means you should not go. Don't cross, just stop and wait. If you want to cross the road and where you want to cross from, there are no pedestrian signal lights. Always wait for the traffic to flow in the direction where you're going, then you cross with the traffic at the same time. Twedeco, every life matters.
This message was brought to you by Viva Energy and NTV Uganda.
Every Monday at 10 p.m.
I'm the champ. You want to come get it.
Watch the latest on local and international sports news and analysis. They never stop giving you more. Every Monday, 10 p.m. on NTV Spotlights.
Oh, nice pass, Kaluma. De Fruto has settled for the bronze.
Only gets better. Every Monday at 10 p.m. on NTV Spotlights.
There is a place very far from this world. And the only way you can get there is through music. Remember, only music can set you free.
One for the party, two for the money.
The beat. TV's hottest stage. With the freshest names in the game. Fresh music. With your hosts Linda Dane, Sammy Watala, and Daggy Nice. Catch NTV The Beat every weekday at 5 p.m. We are NTV The Beat, and we turn on your musical world. You're watching Morning at NTV.
Hello, a very good morning. We're glad you're still watching Morning at NTV. It's the hashtag on Twitter, as it is Morning at NTV. Be part of the conversation by, of course, commenting and giving your feedback on the issues that we discuss here. You can also follow at Chris Higenyi so that we can be able to interact more, especially after the show is done. I do follow back, like they always say. Now, this morning in our Kickstarter discussion, we are discussing the energy transitions and the future of Uganda's energy sector, the impact of OPEC and small oil production cut agreement on the global economy. Just a preamble for you as we go into this discussion. OPEC agreed to reduce oil production next month, the organization's first output cut since the depth of the pandemic as it braces for a global economic showdown to hit demand. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and allied oil-producing nations, including Russia, agreed to have to shave 100,000 barrels per day of their production targets in October. Just a month ago, the OPEC Plus group agreed to increase production in September by the same small amount, equivalent to about 0.1% of global demand, after coming under intense pressure from the United States and other big oil consumers to do more to bring down energy prices and inflation. OPEC Plus agreed to revert the production level to August 2022, noting that the upward adjustment of 0.1, that is a million barrels per day, to the production level was intended only for the month of September. This comes at a time when the world is looking to shift from fossil energy to renewable energy for a multiverse of reasons. Today we analyze the dilemma and the suspense in the energy sector and energy transition. Joining me on the program is Peter Muliisa, the Chief Legal and Corporate Officer, Uganda National Oil Company. We're also joined by Francis Muhirwe, a scholar energy economics at MUBS and NORHED, as well as Bernard Cankara, economic policy expert, to decode the matter. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
I would like to begin this discussion on a lighter note, asking how your take on global events in the last 3 days are, of course, in light of the death of Queen Elizabeth. I'll begin with you, just 30 seconds for that.
Good morning, viewers, and thank you, NTV, for having me this morning. Of course, it's sad, the Queen of the United Kingdom passed on, and indeed several other high dignitaries have passed on in the recent past, and we stand with their families, and for UK, of course, the whole of the Commonwealth that is mourning her. And really excited to be here. I'll be picking on the topic, I think.
All right,
after.
a little bit later. Mr. Bernard Cankara?
Yeah, I think in any death there is always pity. So the death of the Queen comes at a time when, of course, it has been long coming, the fact that she already had an advanced age. But we condole with the United Kingdom and, of course, the entire Commonwealth community. We continue to condole. But, of course, historically, there is a lot more conversation with regards to the relationship between the African continent and, of course, and the UK. But, of course, that is things of the past.
That's right.
And we condole with the English people, and we continue to pray for us all to rest in peace.
Mr. Muhirwe?
Yeah, I joined the whole world to mourn the death of the Queen. It's so sad, but it's life.
All right, thank you very much. I'll stay with you, Mr. Muhirwe. Energy economics at play here. And there's a lot, of course, that is going on. Last week, like you heard in my preamble, OPEC agreed to cut oil production, a surprising move showing that the alliance is seeking to stabilize global markets after faltering economic backdrop that triggered the longest price rout in more than 2 years. Just bring us up to speed with where we are in terms of the global energy crisis or outlook.
Thank you, Chris. When we talk of OPEC, it's actually OPEC Plus.
OPEC Plus, yeah.
Because we have other non-OPEC members. We have Russia coming on board, actually, which is like the leader for OPEC Plus. We have other countries like Mexico, and these are huge, producers of oil.
That's right.
We saw them on 29th last month coming with a decision that, we have to cut oil by 100,000 barrels per day. And this sounds like small, as we put it, it's just 0.1% of the global demand.
That's right.
It looks small, but it's very significant. And immediately the decision was actually announced, we saw actually the price of crude oil increasing by $3. Yeah, so the question is the timing, We are seeing the prices of, oil increasing every day because of what is happening, shortage surpluses and all that. The question is, why the timing, OPEC Plus have a justification that the market is uncertain. There's a lot of volatilities when it comes to the market. Now, you cannot urge about that, but the timing is what we are being questioned. As OPEC comes up with that decision, immediately we see USA and the Western powers putting a price cap on the oil on the Russian oil, and immediately we see China and Russia signing an agreement that to buy my oil, you have to pay either in rubles or your own local currency, not the petrodollar. So when you try to put this together and look at the timing, you see that it's really beyond what we are just seeing in the media out there. And the question is, who's going to suffer out of this? Because it's clear energy is being used as a weapon right now. But who is going to suffer out of this? You have those who are going to suffer, and you have those who are going to benefit, whether directly or indirectly. An economy like Uganda, of course, we are already on a bad position. And as we see these two giants, two sides fighting their wars, we are going to suffer from that.
Okay, Mr. Peter Muliisa, you are the legal officer at Uganda National Oil Company. When you hear Mr. Muhirwe speak of what is no doubt a grim picture, what is the state of affairs when it comes to our oil and developments within that sector?
Well, I'll probably first update you on where we're at with the oil and gas sector in Uganda.
Yeah.
So, of course, it was publicized on NTV, and I believe our viewers watched it when we announced FID in February 1, on February 1. The idea was basically to say we are ready to develop the facilities, we are ready to develop the production lines, and to ensure that the pipeline is constructed. And we committed funds to that effect. And since then, a lot of work has been done. So in Telenga, which is the northern fields, we have drilling starting in December, as well as in Kingfisher. The pipeline is on course to complete acquisition of land by end of December, so that the civil works and construction works start early next year. The intention is to achieve the target that we promised the public, the country, to start production in 2025. And we are still on course. We should be able to meet that target, probably beat it, all factors constant.
Okay.
So that's where we are at.
Yeah.
In the global structure of things, I believe OPEC and OPEC Plus generally reacts to the market. And if you look at the demand situation in China especially, it's a trigger. The conversations with Iran on a possible deal and probably having all Iranian oil back on the market is another trigger. But generally, if you look at the prices this morning, Brent is at $91, WTI is at 85, and that already shows a downward trajectory. But the reality of the prices that we are seeing now, the prices that we are going to see for crude, was really is affected by factors that occurred about 4 or 5 years ago, that have significantly affected the trajectory of supply. And we began to see those effects even before the war in Ukraine, that prices were going $75 a barrel and continuing to grow, largely because of the supply projections, low investment in the upstream. And of course, we are going to speak deeply about energy transition. Energy transition is not a matter that you fix in one year. You cannot stop investment in upstream without a ramped up plan of how you replace this energy source by something else. And so when you suddenly affect investment upstream, you create a long-term or medium-term to long-term supply challenge that will definitely affect prices. Okay. That's my analysis of
Mr. Bernard Cankara, do you entirely agree, or the perspective changes, especially on a policy framework?
Well, I agree with some aspect of this argument. Yeah, of course, Uganda, of course, has come out clearly, and of course, trying to make. I've committed and promised Ugandans that we'll have put this oil into the market, and Ugandans have been patiently waiting, and I think we have been so patient. If you recall when
so patient.
The conversation of producing oil has begun. But of course now we need to understand where we are in what is the global conversation regarding oil and especially fossil fuel that we have, and of course the direction to which the global conversation has been taking shape. You realize that currently the global conversation is actually around transition into a sustainable energy system. Yeah, and of course there is more to the process of transition. And of course, Uganda finds itself as a mother who gives food and then doesn't. A mother who gives food with one hand and takes away with another hand. In other words, what am I trying to say? Uganda is signatory to so many international ratifications. But again, you see us try to advance sustainable sustainable production of oil. At the same time, we are backtracking on oil, fossil fuel production. Of course, that is mixed and requires critical policy adjustments to be able to align that conversation.
Okay, Mr. Muhirwe, talking about critical policy adjustments to be able to align whatever we need to, most importantly, survive the hardships that come with increase or destabilized price trajectories. What exactly should be done in this particular moment in time? Because OPEC looks like it's simply going into price watch mode and not necessarily something that could impact very positively, I must use that one, on smaller economies, especially in Africa.
Yeah, just as we've already said that, you know, when you look at OPEC Plus, for them actually this is the time for them to make money. Yes, they made projections, and I can tell you that for them, I think they are now used to that sweet $100 per barrel. So like, as you checked in the morning, it was 91.
Yeah.
I mean, they are trying to make sure that they want it to close at 100 as much as possible. But that's OPEC and even oil producing countries, which are even not part of OPEC Plus. So they would benefit from that.
That's right.
But even Russia itself, it is benefiting from this. You know, those guys are about to get into winter, and it's going to be really cold. But as a country like Uganda, you know, we need to, some of these things might be too big for us. These issues, external shocks might be too big for us, but we should get a lesson and prepare and prepare, you know, better in the future. And that's where the conversation of energy transition comes in. Energy transition, as has put it, it's a long-term thing. You don't just wake up and fix it in 1 year.
That's
no, it's a process. I'll give you an example. A country like Norway, for example, I think they have been at the forefront of energy transition into sustainable and clean energy. When you go to Norway, it's been over 11 years, but when you go there, you're going to find that out of 3 cars, 2 are electric vehicle cars. So even them, they haven't hit that 100%, and there's still a lot to do. So when you come to a country like Uganda, you know, we need to position ourselves. Because the transition is on, it might be slow, but it is on. We actually saw the demand for clean or alternative energy increasing in 2019. The world has started to respond. Why? The justification is clear. Since Industrial Revolution, the world has been consuming and producing fossil fuel-based energy. And that's why we have challenges of climate change, green gas, carbon footprint, you know. So when you look at all that, and you see the devastating effects of this climate change, you're seeing heat across Europe, you know, across Asia, you're seeing floodings everywhere, drought lakes are drying up. The effects are really devastating, and everyone is trying to be like, we have to get on board. So a country like Uganda, we really need to play our key role. We might appear small, but we are in a wholesome ecosystem. When we are not doing something right, it is not only going to affect Uganda, but the rest of other countries. The same thing. So everyone has a role to play. So a country like Uganda, in this case, you know, as has put it, we are signatories of so many ratifications, whether Paris 2015, UN, all that. But what are we doing in this regard? You know, I find it hypocritical, and it's not only Uganda. I find it hypocritical being members of these, you know, all these groups, you know, trying to fight climate change, and then we still use Vuvela. We are talking about, the president recently talked about that the solution for actually high fuel prices is to bring in electrical vehicles. I want to challenge my brother here, is in the legal spaces. If you wanted to actually import an electrical vehicle today, don't get shocked when there is an environmental levy. But I will leave you that. I don't want to go into details. So, as a country, we have something we can do. You know, for example, Ugandans, the majority, we buy second-hand, cars. When you go to the bonds out there, what we call new is actually not new. All of them have an average of mileage of maybe even 100,000
Some of them
kilometers.
are seventh generation
So,
cars.
Exactly. So if you wanted to import an electric vehicle car today, the second hands on the market are not yet there. So we are waiting. Now you see how the transition is going to be slow here. If you're to import the smallest car, electrical vehicle, the smallest of it is, which is an EV, it is going to cost you about 90 million. You have the initial cost, but also have the taxes. So talking about the transition, it needs favorable fiscal policy framework, which actually encourages people, for example, if you deduct, I'm not saying remove all the taxes, because we're trying to encourage EVs to come in. Deduct some taxes. When people see that it is economical to bring in and import in these EV cars, it will automatically send the signal to the market. The market will sort itself by getting where to charge from all the facilities. It will come.
That's right.
But also, we are saying this transition has been on. Slowly, it's only that in Uganda we've started to pick it up. I want to challenge you to go to our institutions of higher learning. Go to Muhirwe, go to Chambugu, go to the School of Mechanical Engineering. They are still studying about internal combustion engine. They are not talking about electrical car. Killer is a very good project, but even before you think of Killer, why don't you start from those institutions? So these are the smallest things, which may not even need too much, but can spark this whole change we are talking about.
Bernard Cankara, I'll be coming to you very shortly, so you can give us an idea of where we are in terms of harmonizing policy to allow for adoption of some of these technologies, to avoid inconsistencies in rollout, especially. But also he brings out a question of the fact that institutions of learning are still unable to make their own transition that should be the foundational transition to the kind of transition that we need in the energy sector. So that is down to the fact that research is pretty much needed. But before you do that, allow me to ask Mr. Muliisa to take us through where and how we are managing this particular transition, because we are looking at oil on its own and its ability to enhance and improve our energy portfolio. However, in the same vein, there are people who are already past where we are seeking to be, and it's a bit of a dilemma for us, because if the rest of the world is at another stage and we are looking to get to where they are coming from, what does that tell of our ability to even get to where they are, or even better?
Thank you very much. I think let me start with a broad outlook to energy transition.
That's right.
It's generally a desire to deal with the carbon dioxide emissions. So it's broader than fossil fuels.
That's right.
It's bigger because human beings emit carbon dioxide, animals emit carbon dioxide, decaying plants emit carbon dioxide. And when you go to the numbers, you'll find that you're probably getting a bigger composition of the carbon dioxide emissions from humans and animals and the decaying plants. But how do we deal with this carbon dioxide? It is trees and the oceans and the others that will trap part of it. But there's a part that will remain, and most scientists believe that it is too much. We need to be able to reduce how much is in the atmosphere, is retained in the atmosphere, so we can manage climate impacts. But of course, fossil fuels contribute a big portion in the carbon dioxide going to the atmosphere. So to deal with energy transition, you must look at it from a wholesome point of view, that you're looking at all emitters of carbon dioxide. It's a question of carbon dioxide, actually. It has nothing to do with, you deal with the fossil fuels, you deal with the human beings, you deal with the deforestation as possible emitters or uptakers of carbon dioxide. So we need to increase our forest cover. We need to ensure that we manage our forest cover. So how do we transition? Who is transitioning? And many countries coming from the Paris Agreement of 2015 agreed that we should aim at maintaining carbon dioxide, rather increase in temperatures no more than 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. At best, the target is 1.5 degrees Celsius. And to achieve that, nations were required to make voluntary targets called national determined commitments to ensure that they reduce their discharge of carbon dioxide. How do we discharge carbon dioxide? It's largely through industrial use, through energy use. And how do we use energy? It's fossil fuels, it's industry, it's everything. But the use of energy is also related to how comfortable our lives are. So the richer use more energy and as such emit more.
That's right.
And the poorer use less energy and emit less. To put that into context, the whole of Africa, from north to south, west to east, put together, emits about 3.8% of the total global emissions. It's a very insignificant emission. Where the biggest emissions coming from the USA, from China, from Europe, from OECD. And per capita, each individual in those countries that we globally call OECD emits more than 5 times an African or a developing country's resident. So what does that say? It says that the global north has been emitting for the last 200 years, the rich countries. And most of the challenges of carbon dioxide that we are dealing with today and the potential impact it may have on climate change is really a result of that. But what has it done for them? It has given them significant economic growth, that they are extremely rich, that we desire to live the way they live. And that leaves us in a place of what we call energy poverty. 68% of sub-Saharan Africans have no access to electricity. They are absolutely energy poor. In Uganda, we use charcoal and firewood for heating and for cooking. And what is the percentage of the people that don't use charcoal and firewood? 9% that have access to liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, in their homes. So what we are dealing with in the global south, in Uganda, is really energy poverty. You're transiting people from zero. So you can't transit from zero. You must have something first before you talk of transition. So,
all right.
And that's what, interesting. That's what our sector comes in to deal with. We are able to produce about 300,000 metric tons of LPG per year from our sector. And that will help in reducing deforestation, reducing use of charcoal, and reducing use of firewood when it is available to the people at an affordable price, which we are working on. We're also able to get revenues from selling of crude oil for the state. And then the state can build the grid, can build infrastructure, can have people out of energy poverty, and indeed general poverty. And then from that point, we should be able to transit. But let me just finish with this point. So the reality is that when we talk about energy transition, the global north must have a distinct journey.
That's right.
The global south, the us, must have a distinct journey that fits with where we are at today and what our contribution is. That's what we call energy transition justice in the transition.
Okay, that fundamentally speaks to policy rollout. What journeys should each country be able to roll out? Are we even in position to construct a policy framework around which journey we should take?
No, exactly. I agree with him that, of course, development, we are at different stages of development.
That's right.
And the appreciation of energy transition must be done in the context of given countries or given
and their realities
where we are. Of course, as Uganda, like many of these colleagues have said, that it takes time and we must be patient with it. And the fact that we are producing oil, I do not disagree with oil production. We need the oil.
We intend to produce.
Yes, we need the oil. We need to produce so that we can generate substantial revenue to fund our economy. And it is the only way, by the way, we can quickly move out of poverty, on condition that the revenue that we shall be able to generate from oil will be used into the economy without the cases of corruptions that keeps running around our economy. And so how we will use the revenue that comes from the oil sector will be very critical. Otherwise, we're still going to be tired ourselves and nothing progresses. Now, I just want to comment on one thing. For us to be able to move into a sustainable growth, we must be able to inject money into the economy. Ugandans are very poor, and that's a fact. When you look at our debt to GDP, it's quite high. And when you look at disposable income within each and every people's pockets, people are poor. And so the consumption of this energy that we are planning to produce, let's take, for example, hydropower electricity, for example. We don't have policies that are actually pro the economy, putting money into the people so that we can generate the economy from bottom up. So you find the electricity tariffs is actually quite high, and that has made the economy quite weak. And so even if we try to do industrialization, we have low consumption capacity, and that is the reality we are in.
Problem.
So government needs to prioritize in a way that can put money into the pockets of people. Of course, there has been conversation of Paris development model, but I can tell you that one is dead on arrival because it has not been practiced anywhere. It has not been piloted. So I highly doubt because of the system we're in. So we need to progressively continue to think how we can bolster this economy. Let me comment on rural electrification because that is still in line with our National Development Agenda, NDP3, as a support for energy transition. And then you realize that you're actually supplying power to people who don't have the capacity to consume it. If you drive up country, for example, if you go to eastern or even northern Uganda, people cannot pull electricity to a grass-thatched house. So again, government, I think government through Ministry of Finance should focus on galvanizing the economy from bottom up. We are producing electricity, and we are producing this huge capacity, megawatts of electricity, but the consumption is low.
Okay, I think when you speak about the fact that people cannot actually extend electricity in the rural areas, it's mainly for lighting, and lighting, consumption for lighting is really, really insignificant. It can't, even if you were to, for example, say how much money comes out of that, you would be very, very shocked. But allow me talk about the aspects of research, especially in our institutions of learning, and the ability of this kind of way of doing things to take us where we need to be. When you find the conversation at policy level, ministerial, parliament, and you do not find the same conversation within the institutions of learning among the young and budding engineers, then it begins to speak of the fact that perhaps what we are pursuing might not be necessarily achieved. You are at Makerere University Business School, and of course it's not a mechanical or energy-based institution, but it is responsible for making some of the policy recommendations that could actually help in entrenching research and our own ability to make it foundational in going forward. Have you, for example, sought out collaborations, interventions from sector holders to push this particular conversation?
Thank you, Chris. Of course, as an institution, we play our role, but we are in a big whole, our ecosystem.
Yeah, let's concentrate
with very many players, and the government is one of them. So as institutions, for example, I come from MUBS. Research is being actually conducted. But the challenge we've always faced is the resources. We have to first depend on foreigners, to get the funding. That's how challenging it is. Getting it here is not as easy as one might think. And Uganda, like many African countries, we tend to ignore most important aspects like research and development. You can think of all the solutions, all the development strategies, but without research, then you don't know what you're treating. So we've written a lot of research. That's why I've told you, like, we have governance, energy economics and governance at MUBS. And this is actually positioned to energy transition and anything related to that. But I want to take you back to where to the discussion that, as I said, when you look at the global north, they are the biggest emitters of of carbon footprint compared to the global south. But the world is one. it doesn't matter how much you emit, all of you are going to suffer the same consequences. The challenge we've had in leadership globally when it comes to climate change or even energy sector itself, there's a challenge of governance. There is no single, that's why, for example, you cannot talk of one policy that can actually cover the entire world. You have these ratifications, agreements with different members. Member states or heads, they go there, they commit themselves, but when they go back home to their countries, they are totally doing something different. Because as has put it, come to Uganda, we have energy poverty. You cannot tell me to translate from zero to smart or alternative energy. I want to first get out my oil. I get rich, just like Dallas has also said, I first get rich, like you guys got rich. Then we can talk of this conversation. But for Paris Agreement, we just sign. But for me, this is my appeal to the government of Uganda that at least there's something we can do. The transition is on. It is slow, but it is on. And you have to be careful to make sure that we are part of it. Otherwise, we'll wake up when others actually have transitioned. So my appeal is, for example, as has put it, the resources that are actually going to come out of the oil. When you look at the Public Finance Management Act 2015, it is clearly saying that this money is going to be invested in infrastructure, for infrastructure development. So my appeal is that a part of this, not all of it should be put into infrastructure development, but a part of it should be put aside specifically for this energy transition. Because when you look at Uganda's renewable energy potential, it is really high. Look at hydroelectric power. We have over a potential of 2,000, megawatts. But it has, that sector itself has issues. We are today generating about 750 megawatts. But out of that, we have deemed power, which we are actually paying when we are not using, We had a crisis of power that was in 2000s, and then the government called in investors, and Bujagali was one of them. It was agreed, I'm going to produce, generate this electricity, but you're going to be paying me 150 billion Ugandan shillings for the next 30 years. Even when it is not being used, part of it is deemed it is not being used. Why? He has talked of rural electrification. Power, when you look at the grid, connections, even those who are near the grids, they cannot afford this power. You get. So you can generate all the power you want, but if the people cannot afford it, or if it is still expensive, that's why you are getting it wrong. But with the Public Finance Management Act 2015, it should be somewhat adjusted. A certain amount should be put aside to cater for this transition into alternative energy.
All right, thanks, Francis Muhirwe. There, we shall be going for a short break, but gentlemen, do stay with us. I'll return with Mr. Peter Muliisa, take us through whether we can even achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, and just how we can actually sit down and say, what can we pursue, what can't we pursue, what can wait, what shouldn't wait. We shall be coming back with that conversation. Do stay with us. You're watching Morning at NTV, and the discussion is energy transition. We'll be right back.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
New and improved Omo with a new look. An unbeatable stain removal. Omo, unbeatable stain removal. Hello, women entrepreneurs in Hoima. Here is a chance to elevate your business to greater heights. Daily Monitor, in partnership with DFCU Women in Business and Uganda Investment Authority, bring to you the free Rising Woman Training in Hoima. Don't miss the free trainings to all business women in Hoima and surrounding districts on 28th and 29th September 2022 at Hoima West Division Community Hall. For queries, visit any DFCU branch, Daily Monitor, and Uganda Investment Authority offices, or call DFCU Bank 0800-222000 or 0777-530044. Rising Woman, taking your business ahead.
On the next episode
is brought to you by
Enjoy as you win in the Twegateko promotion today.
On the next episode.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry for being so late, but I had to go home to take a shower and feed my son.
Hey, take it easy. There's no rush. I don't have a problem with it.
I'm ready.
Okay? Just let me know next time.
Yes, But don't go thinking that just because we're in a relationship now, I'll stop doing my job.
I would never have thought that. I'm really sorry. Did I burn you?
No, I'm fine. Don't worry.
Oh, Margarito. I was just nervous.
Damiana, why are you so nervous?
It's just... Okay. Baldomero wants to ask me to marry him.
We could start by you paying me half of what you earn here.
Really, half?
Yeah.
There's no way I can do that. I can barely maintain myself. I need help, Waldo. I can't just give someone half my income. Come on, it's too risky a move.
Winning is easy. Just buy a Rock Boom or La Vita and check under the cap. What you see is what you win. Enjoy as you win in the Twegateko promotion today. Call toll-free number 0800 299 008.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
All right. Thank you very much for keeping it here on Morning at NTV. The hashtag on Twitter is Morning at NTV. You can also follow at Chris Higgins. We are discussing energy transition and the future of Uganda's energy sector, especially the impact of OPEC plus a small oil production cut agreement on the global economy. Uganda is already grappling with a range of issues, and when this comes into play, some people are asking, what should we tackle? What should we shelve? How should we even tackle that we intend to tackle, and why must we shelve that we intend to shelve? The discussion here is, of course, thriving, and allow me reintroduce my guests, Peter Muhirwe, Chief Legal and Corporate... Muliisa. My apologies for that. Peter Muliisa, the Chief Legal and Corporate Affairs at UNOC, UNOC being a Uganda National Oil Company, and of course Bernard Cankara, Policy Analyst, and Francis Muhirwe from MUBS, expert on energy economics, and of course working with NORHED. The project itself, NORHED. I'll be coming to Mr. Muliisa very shortly to take us through whether we can even achieve the carbon neutrality that is required of us. But regarding Uganda's ability to come, not only coming clean, but actually being seen to do some of the commitments to the various instruments. We were speaking about the fact that we produce enough hydropower already, and that nobody should be putting us under any pressure at all to do certain other things. But that is something that we can discuss on another note. You were taking us through what can be done in terms of multi-sectoral approaches to tackle this particular problem. I wasn't particularly convinced by what you said. I need a little bit more information on what is going on. What is NORHED, first of all?
NORHED, this is a Norwegian project actually which supports energy transition and alternative energy. As I've told you, is one of those countries at the forefront. To transit from force-based energy consumption and production into smart and affordable clean energy. So they go out there to help developing countries or poor countries like ours, and at MUBS I happen to be one of the beneficiaries of their project. I'm a PhD student of energy economics and governance. So that's what I was telling you, that because for them they know that when it comes to this transition, when we talk of climate change, it involves everyone. You can't be the right thing at home, but you also need to support other countries. So it is something that we need to appreciate. And we should also see other countries, most especially those who are biggest contributors, from North America, China, Europe. These are the, that should be coming and support. The global south actually are not contributing to these emissions. But as I was telling you earlier, that Uganda has a high potential of renewable energy, but it needs strategic and smart investment, in terms of that public investment, structure. As he talked about, we still have issues of corruption. And, as I gave you a case of Bujagali, every year we are paying about 150 billion Ugandan shillings for the power that is not being used. It is generated. You have some Ugandans who cannot afford it, but they need it. So until we sit on the table and we realize that we have a cobweb of a lot of issues, which we need to first solve, and then we can make the right and smart decision.
Okay, at UNOC, what is being rolled out to help Ugandans first and foremost adopt to the increasing needs to be, well, energy compliant, just like the rest of the global citizens? And what should we, like I said in the intro there, what should we shelve, what shouldn't we shelve, why should we shelve, and why should we adopt what we must adopt?
Thank you. And I think from a policy perspective, let me just first paint a picture of the legislation. Parliament passed the Climate Change Act last year, I believe in September. I've read through that act and it's very well thought out. It has adaptation mechanisms that go up to the sub-county level. It has it's really well thought out, and it's a good act that should be able to guide us through what our journey should look like and what our journey is. But let's look at our energy map, because as I said, energy transition really looks at energy consumed and its impact on emitting carbon dioxide, but it also looks at people and human activity and what they are emitting in carbon dioxide. So that's why you've had conversations about animals and the issues that are happening in Ireland, the preservation of forest cover, and all these are as key elements that we have to take into consideration. But what are we looking at in Uganda? What's our energy mix like? 80% of our electricity generation is from hydro, so clean. Our consumption of oil products is really, really low. And if you go to per capita emission of a Ugandan, it's less than an American by a factor of 15 or thereabout. So we are still really low. Our biggest problem is energy poverty. We have to get people out of energy poverty and real energy and real poverty. And that's what our focus should be. So we should be able to exploit and utilize all our resources to develop our people and get them out of energy poverty. Why is that important? It is important because even the slightest of climate change impacts will hit us the most, because we are vulnerable.
Already see them.
Yeah. If
the
you're poor
and
a drought comes, you'll definitely starve in the 3 months after the drought, 3 months after or within even the period of the drought. A country that is rich, that has become rich because it has industrialized, it has used fossil fuel, it has used coal, it has used all these resources, will be able to respond to an emergency like that better than we are able to. So we must be able to build our adaptability capability. And I'll tell you why. When you look at, I've seen analysis that say, based on the nationally determined commitments from Glasgow, which was last year, November last year. We would not be able to achieve net zero by 2050. We would actually achieve 2.7 degrees Celsius, which is much higher than the Paris target of 2%. What will that mean? It will mean probably that some of the impacts will start showing up. And if they show up in a country like Uganda, where we've not built resilience, we've not built adaptability because we are poor, how shall we respond? We won't be able to respond. So our focus as a country is to look at all our capabilities in the clean energy space. And if you talk to the Ministry of Energy, they have a whole range of activities that are planned, including in nuclear as a source of energy. I believe the target in the ministry now is that by 2032, we should have 15% of our energy generation from nuclear, which is the cleanest of all energy sources. So there is already a plan. We're already using hydro, we are looking at nuclear, we're looking at geothermal, we are looking at solar. All these are in place. But alongside these efforts of putting in renewables, having a balanced energy mix, we should be able to develop our resources, including oil and gas. And why is oil and gas important? I wanted to underscore this point. Our biggest challenge, actually our biggest threat to emission of carbon dioxide in Uganda is loss of forest cover. And how do we lose forest cover? Through charcoal production and through use of firewood that most of our people are relying on, but also growth in population. So people are cutting down trees to plant crops. And how is oil and gas going to help us? Oil and gas is going to produce a significant portion of LPG.
LPG, that's liquefied petroleum gas.
The gas that people use in their homes to cook. And there's a policy that is being developed right now by the Ministry of Energy to ensure that that liquefied petroleum gas is affordable to the lowest income person. And once we do that, then you protect your forest cover, you're having renewables, you're able to get people out of poverty through oil and gas and other minerals. I can tell you, for instance, copper. and minerals of that nature. An electric vehicle uses twice as much copper as a normal car. So what's that going to do to the prices of copper in the next 15 to 20 years?
That's
It's
interesting.
probably going to quadruple.
Okay.
And
All
so
right.
we have to look at our minerals, we
Yeah.
have to look at our oil and gas, and we have also to be responsible in the way we develop them.
That's right.
And that's
Mr.
what
Bernard Cankara, when you listen to him, just respond before I ask my
I just
question.
want to make one comment. You see, when you speak, I listen to you and I said, okay, this is a perfect system. This is a perfect system.
Ideal.
But when you look at Uganda, the Uganda, you know, we've been in Uganda and we know how Uganda operates in terms of implementations. And I can tell you that it is going to be far that we achieve net zero. Even the issues that you're talking about, trust me, there is going to be a complete disparity when it comes to implementation. Now, we talk of poverty and getting people out of use of charcoal. Of course, our forest cover depletion is, of course, quite high. But let's first leave the rural people. Let's come back to Kampala.
To the urban areas.
And then we say, okay, there is some little bit of some income in Kampala. If we take Kampala as a case study. And then let's stratify Kampala and we say that, okay, let's say people who are, let's zone them and say this is Kololo residents, these are maybe Nigeria residents, these high profile places. But you find that sometimes these are people that earn some good money to survive. But at the end of it all, such a person, if you visit such a person, you're going to find a bag of charcoal behind in the backyard, okay? So that feeds to the conversation, which I think my brother is not commenting on, the mindset of people. I actually had a conversation at one point with a sister colleague of mine, and she said that for me actually I enjoy food that is prepared from charcoal other than gas. Now that is the reality of Ugandans.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
The taste is different.
Yes.
Gas and charcoal.
That is an evidence from word of mouth. Yeah. So what does that tell us in terms of policy? How do we adjust our system to be able to respond to what people actually...
You just helped me on my question. Adjustments to policy to ensure that we manage the transition, including all the cocktail of requirements and the realities that we must face.
So exactly. So I think for me, I would advise that let's spend time developing policies that are pro-people. Let's go down. Let's understand their needs. Let's do some... A colleague mentioned that the revenue that we spend on research is actually insignificant to be able to support our system. And so let's spend money on research and let's understand what exactly what it means by transition to the local person. And that is very important. For example, in the rural areas, you know, I spend most of the time sometimes in the rural areas. And the locals are actually shunning away from the solar system because I think there has been a lot of campaign that let's adopt solar system, which is okay. It is clean energy and it is encouraged. But the quality that it is actually being delivered to the rural people is actually below standard. And the locals are actually...
Even for the needs, including lighting.
Yes. The locals are actually shunning away solar system. Why? Because they have understood that the quality is actually relative to the low. And that's why they keep running back. So if you're talking about energy transition, government should spend time on research and let's understand our people to the core. Other than that, we're just playing a merry-go-round.
Francis Muhirwe, Peter Muliisa spoke about the fact that we can adopt the cleanest form of energy, nuclear. But me and you know that having nuclear is one expensive endeavor that if we are to adopt it in the way we see most countries adopting and rolling out nuclear energy provisions, we could go bankrupt. Can that even be possible? I've seen on a few occasions President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni interacting with Iranians, interacting with North Koreans and some Russians, and the discussion has centered around the fact that they can help in developing our nuclear energy capacities.
For North Koreans, I'm not sure. but I know he has talked with Russians and Iranians. So nuclear energy, we have a potential of nuclear energy, and it's one of actually the best renewable energy sources you can have. France has actually demonstrated, that nuclear can be the best renewable energy. So the only challenge around nuclear, nuclear, the key or active ingredient of nuclear energy is uranium.
Uranium, yeah.
So now uranium itself can get exhausted. Now that's where actually, however much nuclear energy is considered renewable, but can also be non-renewable. But you have a lot of risks around it. You have a lot of risks around it. We've seen what happened in Japan. You've seen what is, for example, happening in Ukraine. Anytime, there can be danger. That's why most of the countries actually tend to go slow on nuclear.
Yeah.
So I don't want to appear biased or negative, but you know how we operate. We are home. This is Uganda. So let's be honest. The way we run our affairs, the way we manage our public investments, I think nuclear is something we should first go slow on. But instead, look at the things we can easily manage. As everyone can agree, biomass energy accounts for over 93% of energy consumption in Uganda. As I put it, this is, urban people in Kampala that are using charcoal. Then when you go to the village, people are using firewood. Biomass energy, it is renewable, meaning that if the rate you use or cut these trees is at the same rate you're planting other trees, it would be okay. But we are not doing that. But it all goes back into the energy poverty we've all been talking about. Our people are too poor. And as I put it, the government, we need to accept that we are still a poor country, but with high potential to become a developed country. We need first pause, stop the way we are doing our business.
We are now middle income status, sir.
That I don't believe.
You don't believe?
Statistical and political, it is correct, but it will even take us 3 years. If we can sustain that for 3 years, then we can say we are. But Ugandans out there in the pockets, we are poor.
All right, Mr. Bernard Cankara, any benchmark or policy frameworks that can be rolled out to help Uganda in energy transition? You should be looking out on what has worked, perhaps in other countries that are in our position across Africa. Is there anything you can share?
Well, I think the closest example, like you mentioned, there is Norway, and the other example that we can refer to is Sweden, for example. Sweden has done very well when it comes to energy transition, and I think...
No, Sweden and Norway are the other side of the world. I'm talking about Africa, the one that we relate with, and perhaps the way we roll out could be similar and offer us some kind of comfort, so to speak.
No, far from it. I think, especially in the global south, we are still in a similar environment where we're all struggling to be able to adapt and try to find our foot in the energy transition. If you look closer maybe to Angola, I mean, yes, Angola is trying to make move a little bit much faster in terms of their policy reforms, but generally, I think the entire global south, we are still a little struggling to find our feet.
Let's allow Mr. Peter Muliisa to take us through exactly what we can benchmark on, or what the officials and the technical people within Uganda National Oil Company are doing to ensure that we actually take a path that is first and foremost sustainable, but one that can lead us exactly where we want to be.
No, thank you. I've been at meetings that have mainly resource-rich countries in Africa, and there's a general alignment on how we should move. But let's keep it home and see what we are doing in Uganda. In Uganda, there's a real focus on hydro, which is clean as an energy source. There's growing solar usage as well as an energy source. There's focus on geothermal in the plans for energy production. There's also focus on nuclear that is targeted towards 2030. As another source of energy. So in the global look of our energy mix, it's a very good mix. It's largely green, clean. But of course, we also recognize that we have poverty to deal with. We have forest cover to loss that we have to deal with. We have adaptability to build. And so we are going to develop all our resources, oil and gas, minerals, and other resources that we have to enable us to move our people from poverty so that they have something to transition from. The reason the Global South, as my colleague has just stated, is struggling is because most of the countries have nothing to transition from. They're at zero. They have zero energy.
Yeah, well,
and
it's
so
even a difficult conversation to
first give
take
people
on.
energy, then you tell them to transition. But we can start with clean energy, for instance, a good mix, so that we don't have to transition from coal and these other dirty fuels and move. So how are we developing oil and gas? We've learned from what other countries have done, and we've picked elements that make our production very sustainable. I'll give you an example. In our laws, we banned flaring. Now, flaring is one of the biggest emitters in oil and gas upstream. It accounts for about 15% of gas emissions from just production, and we've banned it. We've made it illegal. So that is already a sustainable development. We've considered that carbon dioxide emission, and we've cut it out. We've looked at our transportation of the crude oil, and what are we doing with it? Instead of using crude oil to generate power to heat the pipeline, we are going to generate solar that will heat 80% of the pipeline, and the rest of the 20% will come off the grid, which is, as I have said, the grid is largely hydro, which is clean. So the whole heating of the East African crude oil pipeline will be clean. And what else have we done? Even downstream, elements that we may not really consider. Our grade of fuel that we import in East Africa is Euro 5. It's one of the cleanest in the world. And why are we doing that? It's because we are cognizant of the impact of emitting carbon dioxide. So we're responsible. Now going granular to UNOC as an entity. We are responsible
just to wrap it
for all
under
the
30
projects.
seconds. Yeah.
Yes, and so what we've planned to do is to ensure that all our projects are generally carbon neutral. We're going to plant 40 million trees to ensure that any emissions that come out are neutralized by the fact that we have planted those trees. And I guess that speaks to what he was saying. That
all right.
And so yes, that's where we are at.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to end it there. That's all we had time for. But we are emboldened by the discussion and the insight, as well as the perspectives that you have shared on energy transition. I do hope we can tap into the wealth of information and knowledge that you have on your social media platforms and any other work that you're doing. I'll be glad to share policy papers like you did on something, and the same applies to you. Many thanks, Mr. Peter Muliisa, Chief Legal and Corporate Affairs Officer at UNOC, Bernard Cankara, a policy analyst, as well as Francis Muhirwe, expert on energy economics and lecturer at Makerere University Business School. That's it for this discussion. It's been a pleasure having your company. But as we enter the final bend, allow me go into our tradition. Birthday wishes to Sherry, sister wa Jose. Happy birthday, and like I always say, may the stars align themselves to a beautiful and a gracious destiny. Happy birthday again there from Jose. All the best wishes in life. Well, that's it. I'm Chris Higenyi on behalf of my colleague Priscilla, Regina Naloga, but also most importantly, the guys behind the scenes who ensure that this work is as smooth as it appears. Please, many thanks. For those that are watching, please do continue to follow the conversation on our social media platforms. On Twitter, please follow at Chris Higenyi. That's it. Goodbye.
When you buy Rigo Paints Premium Emulsions, open and pick out the Gata Onera coupon. Go to Messages, type Gata, leave a space, type coupon codes in capital letters and send to 6585 to redeem your instant airtime.
This is BBC Money Daily, your bite-sized snapshot of what's hot in business and beyond ahead. Leaders from across the world congratulate Kenyan President-elect William Ruto after the country's Supreme Court upheld his win. Also, Liz Truss takes over as the new UK Prime Minister, inheriting a troubled economy. Plus, insurance payouts to cushion small-scale farmers in the face of crop produce loss due to climate change. We're coming to you from Nairobi. Let's do this. I'm Maya Hayakawa. Money Daily starts right now. We begin our coverage in Kenya, where messages of goodwill continue to stream in following Kenya's Supreme Court verdict on Monday. The court upheld the declaration of William Ruto as the president-elect after the general elections were held on August 9th. The U.S., through Secretary of State of Antony Blinken, congratulated Ruto, reiterating that his country was looking forward to working with the new government and deepening their long-standing partnership for the benefit of Kenyans and Americans alike. Uganda's Yoweri Museveni also took to Twitter and underpinned the need to forge and strengthen relations between the two countries and the strategic partnership in advancing the East Africa, the EAC agenda. Other leaders who sent in their messages of goodwill include President Hakainde Hichilema of Zambia, Julius Maada Bio of Sierra Leone, and African Union Commission Chairperson Musa Faki Mahamat, among others. While outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta said, and I quote, "I commit to executing the orders of the court to the letter. The process of handing over began its work as of August 10th. I want to wish well all who have won as they guide our country into the future." Listen to this.
I commit to executing the orders of this court to the letter. The process of handing over is in progress through the Assumption of Office Committee, which actually has already begun its work as of August 10th, 2022. And indeed, it is my intention